It's been a while since I've done one. It's good to be back on. I'm having a kid in a couple weeks here. My wife's having the kid, but it'll be me involved, of course. So I will be maybe away for a little bit. We'll see. Maybe I'll be more talkative, actually. I don't even know. But a few things. Everyone's been seeing crypto and all the stuff that's going on in there. So I think it pays to consider opening yourself an account there and looking into a lot of that stuff if you're not already doing that. I've had an account open for a long time, and I kind of didn't do much in it the last few years, and then the last 6 months I've been doing a lot more in it, trading it, holding it, other things, because there's just a ton going on. There's lots of movement. It's pretty technical, and if you can break through some of the barriers of understanding it and do some reading, get yourself up and watch a few different instruments in there, you might find it to be more opportunistic than the stock market right now. So part of my spiel today is about kind of finding yourself a little bit, and also not building a character around what you think you need to be, and instead doing what you're naturally good at, and also understanding how to adapt and make money when things are changing a lot. Meaning that sometimes there's a difference between chasing what's hot, running to the hot market, jumping products. That's negative, I would say. And then there's a difference between that and being opportunistic and going where the money is and traveling with your skill set. You know what I mean? Taking it and going. And that's one thing so a lot of what I talked about on here has been this, excuse me, a little bit of allergies still. I've talked about, I'm day trading for so long, and my whole career, basically in the last 3 or 4 years, I've worked on lengthening the time frame, learning stock market stuff, different trading, swing trading, sometimes longer. And I talked about making a transition. And in a sense, what I kind of did was I thought, okay, I made a good amount of money in futures, so I'm comfortable that way. And now how do I really expand that even further? Well, I hold stocks for longer periods of time, and I can move a lot more money around, and I can do a lot better. It makes a lot of sense, right? Seems really scalable. But one thing that I'm missing is a lot of that fast twitch movement, the pros of an impulsive behavior, personality, all that stuff, the adaptability to quickly figure out when you're wrong and switch into something else and all that stuff. There's a lot of that made me a lot of money, and that's what I'm naturally very good at, and I've kind of brought with me everywhere I've gone. And I'm into the new stuff pretty quickly, and I usually admit when I'm wrong, and then I move on, and I'm always just kind of recycling and looking around and seeing what's next. And I'm also good at figuring out when stuff's going to be a bigger deal for a longer period of time, but sometimes it's hard for me to hold on to that because I'm so used to trading that the gyrations get in my way. So I have to trade it smaller and sit through those bumps. So that's kind of all part of the process. But my point is that I started building a character around myself into thinking what I need to be. Like, I need to be this guy who moves into this other thing and leaves behind some of the other stuff. And it's kind of bullshit, because what I've realized is, and I'm kind of thinking this, and I'm just naturally going back to mixing it all together again. And what's going to happen, what's already happening, is I spent all this time looking at how to understand a good earnings report, how to understand how things follow through when there's big stories or big inflection points, and how to understand the growth cycle of a company. I spent a lot of time on this, and I've gotten a lot better at it. And I figured out a lot of ways that don't work, and I found some ways that do. And as I've started making money doing that, it's just something I can bring into my other system. So now, when it's busy, I can day trade. And lately, it's been a way better day trading market than a swing trading market, which a lot of you know, or a growth market. Because 2020 was, a great buy and hold market, and there's a lot of neglect. So people were buying highs and swing trading, and a lot of people got into the market, and that's all they knew. And that's what they're trying to do now. And it's frustrating because you see the indices making highs, but it's just a few companies, and a lot of the growth companies aren't doing so well. And so there's this skill set about emerging trends, digging around on social media, figuring out what's next, figuring out where everyone's stuck, figuring out where there's neglect. And then there's like a trading skill set of like how to find a good price on the chart, how to get in where your risk is low. And you can kind of, like, for me, from doing this almost 20 years now, it's almost like I'm at my best when I'm pooling all this together and doing all of it at once, but there's no boundaries around it. So one day it's today was the day where you're day trading, and that was what showed up, and it was great. And then there's a swing trade that works, and then there's something that I'm going to hold for 3 or 4 months because there's a real big theme and I'm in a good area, and I size appropriately for that. And then maybe I also trade around the thing that I'm in for 3 months during the day sometimes because I see little inflection points. So how do I define myself? What kind of trader am I? Well, it depends on what I see, because of the way I think and my logic and entering where I think I'm wrong and realizing when people are stuck and why they're buying and getting into the psychology of all that is super important in understanding where the participation is. We've talked about this. Like if everyone thinks it's going up and they're already long, it doesn't go up as fast. And it's prone to go down because people are already long. So that's why the stupid news kind of resets the participation, and oftentimes you get a good buy after, which you saw in Ethereum with like the move from 2100 down to 1600 on like the Jerome Powell, these are not good stores of value type comment, and then it resets it, and then that was the last move before we really went up, and you get those great entries. And so that's one thing that I always like on any time frame. That could happen on a 5-minute chart, and it can happen on a weekly chart. It just depends on the news and the product. So my thing for today is really to think about not putting boundaries around yourself and thinking you have to be a certain way. And people who are newer, it's you have to go through a discovery process. I've done so much discovery work, obviously from doing it so long, and you have to go through a lot of that. But people who have been trading longer, it's like, are you putting boundaries around yourself, thinking you have to be a certain way, building like this image of what your friend is doing or what worked in 2020 and how it's easier to hold something and it's more scalable, and all that stuff may or may not be true, but it's just a justification for doing what you're doing, which might make total sense for you if that's who you are, if that's your personality. So there's like think about like, football team, like a coach. There's 2 things I've seen really. There's the coaches who they do what they do. It's like, we're going to run the ball and we're good at it and it's coming and you can't stop us and we're just going to be better at it. And then there's the other group who tailors what they do based on kind of each team, and they use their pieces the most effectively against the defense they're facing, and they veer towards that more versus doing kind of the same thing. And I think that honestly, like, both approaches are good if you really believe in one side or the other. But for me, it's a mixture. It's like sometimes I'm just doing what I'm good at, and other times what I'm good at is not doing the same thing. It's moving. Like right now, I've been doing more crypto, and it's been working really well for me. And a lot of people think, well, that's not real. That's stupid. I'm over here waiting for the next growth stock to go up. Okay, that's great, and it worked well last year. Maybe it works well soon, but I mean, you could be waiting a while, or you could not be. I mean, it's not about any of that. It's just thinking through, are you able to put yourself in the best position to succeed and keep a really open mind about where you're strong, and maybe breaking through some clutter in your head about what is or isn't a good way to do things. Are you telling yourself a story? Because I was telling myself a story, and now I'm more excited because I'm thinking, well, this new stuff I'm working on is great, because I can keep using it, and I have now formed some groups of some really smart people who do the new things exclusively, so I can learn from them and kind of share ideas. But then I have all my other skills that I've always used to put myself in this position in the first place that I can use. And those skills now have been more valuable lately, and they weren't as valuable last year to me, except for during March and April when it was really busy. But it got to be more of a buy for 5 days and get out, or just buy and hold last year. And this year it's more tactical, which is what I'm better at. But I spent a lot of time learning the other stuff, so it's like I'm just that much more dynamic when it shows up. But I started to think, because I was working on something a lot, I needed to just do that. It was almost like the money that I made from that was worth more than the money I made in the other thing, even though the dollar amounts were the same. Actually bigger in the legacy business, if you want to call it that, because it's what I'm better at. Doesn't mean I should never do anything else either, though, because I learned that I can learn something else. But it's like, don't throw away what got you to where you are, and learn to use it and move with it to different places. So that's the big message for today, and it's pretty uplifting actually, and it makes you feel free when you can think that way and not pigeonhole yourself. So hopefully that connects with somebody else.